you're listening to Julie Taylor, and this is Julie and Company. Today our guest is Allan Bowbrick. Allan is part of the first responders that we have the privilege of having here in our region, and so happy you're here.
Glad to be here.
So I hear you have a lot to say.
Well, I'm very passionate about the first responders. It's been in my blood for a long time.
How many years?
Well, we're just past the start of our 23rd year.
And you've been there 23 years?
I've been there since I was in the first group that was trained in the town of Brome Lake.
Wow. And were you involved in a significant way to make it happen? Is it a volunteer organization, or was there how did it come about? Tell me about it.
Well, it is voluntary. I wasn't one of the organizers per se, but when the town announced that they were going to form a first responder team, with my background as a first aider where I was working for over 20-some years, I said, I think this is something I can do.
Yeah.
Little did I know that, I was thinking, okay, what are they going to ask for? They're going to ask for a couple hours a week or something like that. But come to find out, it was 2 shifts of 12 hours per day, and you had to have 2 first responders. And so it was more than I
anticipated, yeah.
But in the first year, actually, there was only 16 of us in the first crew, and we were putting in many shifts per week. A lot of nights I was on, and I was actually what we called a supervisor back then. So if I wasn't on call, I had a radio. I was in the background with a radio, so if the team needed something extra, they needed information on where they were going or whatever, I was there to answer the radio and say, okay, well, what I see from the information we're getting, you need to be at this address, and this is what you're going to be dealing with.
Right. So we're talking about how it came about. Tell me a little bit about the structure, please, of the organization now.
Okay, now? Okay, so right now we have what we call a Chief of Operations, which is Stephanie Corbier. She actually just took my place at the beginning of April 1st. She took over completely. I decided to step back from being Chief of Operations. I took over that from Pierre Laplante in December 2016. And my job was to make sure that all of our training was kept up to date, make sure that we had enough manpower to handle the calls, make sure our equipment was maintained, and make sure that we had all of our stock we needed, like bandages and pads for our defibrillators, make sure the batteries were up to date. So
as a structure, originally 16 members. Today, how many members?
Right now we're 28 members. We're a little short-handed because the team runs best when we're about 32 or 33 members. This gives us a little bit of a redundance because we ask for a minimum of 4 shifts per month.
Are the shifts still 12 hours?
In the early years, it was 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., and that was written in stone because that was aligned with the paramedic. When their shifts changed over, our shifts changed over. But over the years, it's like a paper rule book. Paper rule book has flex.
I see.
So depending on who you're working with, who you're changing with, morning shift change can go anywhere from 6 a.m. to 8:30, depending on who's taking over. So we try and accommodate, because we're volunteers, we try and accommodate everybody to be able to have the room to be able to do that.
Yeah, that grace, that couple of hours that kicks in.
Well, and a younger person who still has children going to school, they need to be home at early hours of the morning to make sure the kids are dressed and ready and get on the bus. Then they can take over. So it gives us a little bit of leeway. Weekends is more relaxed for shift change as well. And that's where it actually originally started, where we had a little bit more flex.
Yeah. So a shift is still 12 hours?
It's 12 hours in general.
In general, okay. And yes. I was thinking, when you are on shifts, you have minimum of hours to fill to be considered a member? How does it work? What are the obligations today if you want to join?
You are obliged, or we ask when we recruit you, we tell you we expect you to do a minimum of 4 shifts per month. How you do that is up to you. You can do 4 shifts in a row, or you can do 24 hours this week and 24 hours in 2 weeks.
But is 24 hours compromising the quality of the potential care you need to bring? Wouldn't you be tired?
No, because you're at home with the vehicle.
I see.
So you respond from your home, and you can be in bed. You can be asleep in bed and the pager goes off and you respond from home.
So give me an example of what that would look like. You're at home, you're in bed, the pager goes off.
Personally, I set myself up. You've seen it on TV how firemen are set up and their boots are in their pants. And I'm basically set up like that.
You sleep in your boots?
No, I don't. No, actually, I sleep.
I was kidding.
I sleep in normal, like I would normally would. And pager goes off, I'm up. I basically jump into my pants and pull over shirt.
Yeah.
So and it's all the regular uniform. Get my belt on with my radio and my tools.
So from experience, you've reduced that time between the beep and getting in the vehicle to how long?
My average is from the pager going off to being in the vehicle, 3 minutes.
That's quite remarkable.
Dressed, in the vehicle, going.
Wow.
So 3 minutes, yeah. It's sometimes you're going down the road, blinking your eyes, trying to get your moisture back in your eyes from sleep. But and the hamster has to start going really fast because you've seen the call. Am I going for somebody in breathing difficulties? Am I going out for somebody that's having a stroke? Is it a car accident?
When are you fed that information? By the time you're in the car or the vehicle?
When the page comes in on the phones, we have smartphones now. Yeah. Early days, it was a pager. It was hit and miss because sometimes it would come in, the text would be in Martian. it would be symbols and letters and numbers, and you're going, so you'd have to call Central on the radio and say, please tell me where I'm going.
Yeah, brief me, yeah.
Yeah, but now with the smartphones, it comes in, it gives you a link to a page, and we call it an app. It's not really an app, but we call it an app.
Yeah.
And it comes in and it gives you the information of the address where you're going, the cross street, what the call is, how severe it is. It even gives you way more information about the actual situation with the patient, if they're changing color, if they're in convulsions.
So, like you said, 3 minutes go by, your hamster is starting, your eyes are starting to humectify, and you must have a sense of the scenario so that you can already be exploring options.
Well, this is it.
To be ready.
You look at the address, where am I going first, okay? Then you look at what the call is. So it comes in, we call them Clausen codes. So, for instance, if somebody's in breathing difficulties, it's a 6 delta. It's a number, a letter, and a number.
And that's a code.
And that's a code. You. So usually all I worry about is, okay, it's a 6. Somebody's having problems breathing, right? Is it priority 0, priority 1, priority 3? Because that's important to know.
Yeah.
Priority 3 is no lights, no sirens. You're going, but anything P1 or P0, you're going very
full
urgent.
Throttle.
It's very urgent.
Yeah.
You don't really go in and read all the rest of the information. It gives you what you need to get to the call.
Yeah.
The person who is on operations, the officer that's on operations, who's staying at home, if you need more information, you say, okay, ops, feed me more information.
Right.
And I'll say, okay, so the patient is changing color, they're getting cyanotic, they're getting blue, whatever. So you know when you're walking in what you're going to see. How far out is the ambulance? Because it'll give us a timer of approximately how long the ambulance will be there.
So your job as a first responder essentially is to get to the site and get everybody on a lifeline or comfortable, or what's the mission?
When I get on site, we tell Central we're on site. We have actually a little icon we push, and it tells Central that we're on location. So it automatically tells the ambulance first responders are there.
Yeah.
From there, we go into the house, and we get to the patient, and we start going through our ABCs, air, breathing, circulation. We go through our sample. So these are all acronyms. So sample is signs, allergies. It's all things that we go through. Are you allergic? What kind of medications you're taking? What's your medical history? Do you do something that makes your condition worse? And we're trying to assess what's going on, how we can best
brief the ambulance people coming in.
Or how we can best help the patient for what we can do. Do they need oxygen? Are we going to give them oxygen? And that's critical as well, because for us, you think oxygen is air. For us, it's considered medication.
I see.
So we have to be very accurate with it. Somebody who has COPD are very sensitive to oxygen.
What does COPD stand for?
Chronic obstructive pulmonary disease.
Okay. Is that a condition where your muscle, you get spasm or it tightens and then the air would not be able to get through? Maybe you don't know.
Anything that affects the lungs, so bronchitis.
Different conditions. There's many different conditions that would obstruct the oxygen coming in.
Exactly.
Okay.
If you're diagnosed with COPD, or in French it's MPOC, then we approach oxygen use differently. We use the saturameter, and we have to maintain certain levels of O2 in the blood.
And so your mission is to keep the patient alive and comfortable until the paramedics come?
Until they arrive, and they may give them a medical treatment on the site, or they might do a scoop and run and take them to the hospital, or it depends on the
You must get
priority.
A shot of adrenaline. I mean, getting awoken by a beep. 3 minutes you're in the car, your mind is racing, the hamster is on, and at the same time you need to be super cool, calm, and collected.
And keep your voice even and be very soothing to the person. You don't want to agitate the patient as well.
Yeah.
Yes, there's an adrenaline rush. Myself, after 23 years, I'll go out on a call at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'll come home, get back in bed, go right back to sleep. So I manage my adrenaline. Some people, they just can't go back to sleep after.
I see.
Because it's just, but it's after you get to be like, as some of us call ourselves, old heads. You get to be an old head. You kind of say, yeah, okay, well, back to sleep. You never know when the pager's going to go off.
Do you see yourself not doing this one day?
I know it's coming.
They say adrenaline is addictive.
I know it's coming because I've already set a date for myself. It's going to happen in December 2027, December 14th, 2027, or March 3rd, 2028.
Okay. And is that because of astrology that you're aligned with certain...
December 14th date is the date I was hired by the town to be a first responder.
Okay.
And it'll be 25 years.
Wow.
The March 3rd is 25 years that the team has been live.
I see.
So those are the dates.
Milestones.
Those are my milestones, and I will be over 70 years old. And so
you might need a first responder after that.
Well, I mean, I'm still in relatively good health, other than I just had surgery on my eye for an unrelated situation. But so as long as I can keep going, I have told people that I'm going to have a very hard time to step away from it.
Yeah.
It's because it's become such a part of my life that it's...
So what are the qualities that makes a first responder thrive and deliver?
You want to have a connection to the citizens, to the town. Obviously, logo, our motto rather, is neighbors helping neighbors. You want to be a very empathetic person. You want to be able to feel for the patient and want to do any harm. You also have to be able to deal with that extra stress of dealing with somebody that's been in cardiac arrest or...
Does anything prepare you for that? To come face to face with, maybe a death.
I think that our trainers are very good at telling us what we're going to face, but there's nothing that replaces real-world situation. So, like, after you've had your training and you go live, and we always take our training very seriously, it's never as easy as when you're new. Because when you're new, you're soaking in. When you've had a lot of experience in the field and you're doing training and you have to stop and say, okay, you're working on a mannequin and you have to look at your trainer and say, does he have a pulse? These are all things that you'd be feeling with your fingers. When I walk into a house and I start talking to you and you're talking, I've done 3 verifications of your situation all at once. You talk back to me, you're alert, you're conscious, you're breathing, your color is good. It's all these things are just...
So you have excellent training.
Yes.
And I understand that you get very logical when you get on site. You don't get emotional. You get logical.
You get logical.
But as a human being, does anything make you, when it happened the first times, did you think to yourself, oh, crumbs?
Well, my first cardiac arrest that I faced, I was told by my partner that I was kind of hollow after.
What is hollow?
I wasn't there. Because we had worked, we had got a pulse return, and then I was just kind of like, can we call it shell-shocked after? It's like, you're dealing with the adrenaline rush, and back then it was really fresh, and that you got a million things going through your head. Is this person going to survive? We got a pulse back, but are they going to survive? And and that's always the goal. And it's about the patient, but you have to deal. We're humans after all, so you have to deal with how you're feeling inside.
But you get used to it? You get better at it.
You get better at managing it. You have to think that when we work, we're not going out for the fun of it. When we're called out, somebody is sick, somebody is injured.
So there's a sense of gravity.
Yeah.
Not as in gravity floating, but how grave it is.
Absolutely, yes. You're feeling, you know that what you're going to do is because somebody is in need of help. And so it's very, it sharpens your instincts.
I agree with that. And I was curious to know, over the course of your career volunteering for the first responder, do you think that you've developed a spirituality from being in contact potentially with the spirit world, if you believe that we're part spirit embodied?
Well, I have talked to people who have passed. That's a tough question to answer. Spiritual, yes. I'm more a spiritual person than a religious person, I would put it that way. I like my quiet time in the morning to center myself, to focus on when I'm starting a shift, what I'm going to be up against. But sometimes you don't have that time to center yourself. I usually get the new people working with me. And one of our recent recruits, their very first shift, we were 10 minutes into the shift. I was still briefing the person on how to hand out the vehicle and where things were in the vehicle, and we got called out.
Right. So that was a crash course.
It was like, okay, we're going. And we had 2 calls, bing, bing. Within an hour, we had 2 calls.
So sometimes it's not ideal. You have to draw on your own resources and trust the process and
Absolutely.
go with it. But you have had situations where perhaps over the time of your career, that you've grown more spiritual with time because you may have had more experiences that made you feel the invisible world? I don't know if I'm saying this right. I'm trying to not keep this religious, but spiritual is what I'm talking about. Did it transform you as a human being?
It's changed me.
Yeah.
It has changed me. Both my parents have passed, and they're interned here in the cemetery here in town. And every time I drive by there, I say hello to them. And I don't just think it. I say hello to them. I like to think that there's something afterwards.
Yeah.
But what? I don't know.
Hi, would you like to be on the show? Do you have any questions or ideas you'd like to share? Go to julietaylor.ca and leave me a message. Do you feel like telling me about those instances where you've been spoken to by spirit? We don't have to.
I can't really describe. It's just feeling of being a connection with something.
Yes.
So being there in somebody's final minute and doing all you can you're going to have a connection with them no matter what.
Yes.
And you always feel bad for them and the family. I always, if it doesn't turn out well for the person, I always speak with the family afterwards. I always ask them.
Must be a very bonding moment,
you talk with them and just try and help them deal with the initial shock of what's going on, and mention if they ever need any help, that there are resources available. So
you've grown more spiritually. I don't want to put words into your mouth. And you have a routine where you connect with yourself. You align, you center yourself in your words, and you like to go in nature to do that?
I like to go, actually, my favorite
What's your routine? Tell me about that.
My favorite place in the summertime when I start my shift is I always have my coffee with me in the morning. I need that coffee to get going in the morning. And I like to go down and sit at Douglas Beach.
Douglas Beach.
Early in the morning, like 6:30 in the morning. You sit there and the sun's up, and there's ducks and geese on the lake, and sometimes the roars are out there. It's just really super peaceful. And you sit there, and I've taken decisions sitting there. Like, I was working at a local business, and it was during COVID. And during COVID, it was stressful during COVID because everybody was feeling the stress.
Yeah.
And sometimes customer relations being what they were, it was not easy to deal with people. And there was one instance where I was sitting there having my morning coffee, looking out, and I said to myself, why am I doing this? And not the first responders part, but the other job. Why am I doing this? And I made the decision on the spot that I'm done. I'm taking my retirement from that. I'm not going to work other than doing first responders anymore.
So if you take time and you center yourself and you make peace, usually you hear your own inner voice and your direction more clearly?
Is it my inner voice, or is it somebody The family saying, "Why are you still doing this?"
By family, we mean.
Yeah, my mom and dad, or just yeah.
Right.
So.
What advice would you have for people who are considering maybe joining the first responders but hesitate because it carries a lot of responsibility if you're talking about life and death, and they don't get involved? But I guess from your point of view, I suspect you're thinking the more the merrier. We take the pressure off the group, and nobody is ever singled out, and it's not your job to make a life happen. You just need to show up with your ABCs, because just by showing up, you're a tremendous help.
That's the message I always give people who, as we call them, newbies. I always tell them it's out of your hands. You do what you can, but just remember, if you're nervous, cover your ABCs. Do your basics and go from there. Sometimes that's all you can do. That's all you can do is make sure that you cover your bases, make sure you do everything you can until the paramedics show up. And sometimes the paramedics, they need to get them to the hospital as well, because everything has stages.
So what I'm hearing is it's out of your hands anyway.
Well, the
outcome. However, by being there, you're improving the chances 100-fold maybe.
Absolutely.
Versus not, because the ambulance has to leave from Cowansville.
I've been present on a few occasions when we've brought somebody back from cardiac arrest. And that's and by our work with CPR, which I recommend that everybody learn. Get a course of CPR if you can. Whether
you do first responder or you're just,
absolutely.
A father or mother or...
And there's public defibrillators all over the place now. As we have one in Fulford, one in Foster, Bonneville, West Brom. There's defibrillators. So if you learn how to do that... What's
a defibrillator?
So a defibrillator is a machine that we put these pads on your chest. A lot of you have seen it on TV. Don't go by what you see on TV, because it's not reality. But what it does is you get the pads in two places over your right shoulder, near your right shoulder, kind of on your
But that
thorax.
Anyway comes with a guide, and so you would have to look at the information and not take our word for cash.
Exactly. If you look at the at the pads, it shows you where to put them. Right. The machine analyzes your cardiac rhythm, and if it sees fibrillation or tachycardia, it will shock.
So if you're in that place where you suspect that your heart is not functioning, or it might feel like a heart attack, or you're concerned, like very concerned, if you had that at home and you applied it might keep you going for 5 minutes until a professional comes?
I don't know if it'll shock you if you're actually awake.
It's almost an intelligent machine that if you need it, it will work.
What it'll do, like some people have a pacemaker and a defibrillator installed internally.
Yes.
And those will shock you when they'll recognize the pattern.
In this case, I suspect when you say shock means keep you pulsating.
It'll shock you.
Yeah, but it keeps you pulsating. It has the purpose of keeping you alive.
It regulates your heartbeat. Okay, so the tachycardia is a very rapid beating of the heart. It's beating so fast that it can't fill with blood.
Okay.
Whereas fibrillation in your heart is more like jello. The muscles aren't coordinated, and so it's not
rhythm.
pumping.
Got it.
So the shock, what it does is it
stops to start.
It stops to start. It's a reset.
Got it. And then from there, potentially, the heart will beat what it needs to beat
in combination
for your
with
blood
CPR.
To flow. Got it.
Combination, because the CPR keeps up your blood pressure and keeps the oxygen going to the brain.
Okay, now, being trained to be a first responder and not having that training and getting a machine is not going to serve you very well.
If you have access to one, you have no training. First of all, if you call 911 for an ambulance, the operator will talk you through doing CPR.
I understand. So granted you're not alone at the house.
Yes.
Essentially, your immediate environment might act as a first responder.
Exactly.
Otherwise, here in our region, we have first responders. Allan, for example, he'll be already driving within 3 minutes of your call. And we have a smaller, it's an extended region, but how quickly, or how quick or how long might it take to drive, in your experience, for the last 20 years?
Depending on who's on call, because like I say, we respond from our house. So we have team members who live in West Bolton. We have team members who live, we have one in Iron Hill.
So is there any statistics?
Again, depending on where you're starting from. If I'm starting from my place, I'm to the limits of West Bolton, I'm going to be 15 minutes.
Well, that's excellent, though. Still
15 minutes.
It's long. It's long
15,
if you think you're not going to live.
But it's a long ways, and it's all on dirt roads. And a call, we do have 10 kilometers of the Autoroute 10.
Yeah. So learning CPR, because they must offer it in many places.
Yes.
That's a suggestion you had from the beginning, or just now. Learning CPR, and if you could get a fibrillator, am I wrong? Is that what it's called? Defibrillator. You could save a life.
You could, because it'll talk, and they all talk to you. They tell you, okay, now do this,
and
now
do
this,
okay.
and they'll give you a metronome. You push at this rate.
Okay. Have you found that in situations of life and death, that there's an energy or a presence that guides your hand? Do you find yourself hyper-focused? Does something happen?
I'm focused, but I think that it's a product of my training. We have, as I've mentioned, we have excellent trainers, Pierre Briand, Mark. Over the years, Justin, we've had a few trainers, and they're all excellent. They're all paramedics, and the information they give us and the feedback we get from them. We also deal with them in the field. They're, like I say, they're working paramedics. So we'll see them in the field, and we'll get feedback from them on that. And all of our...
It's a collaboration. It's teamwork.
And we fill out information for all of our calls. It's reviewed by a doctor or by somebody, goes to Quebec, and everything. All of our calls are reviewed. And if there's any issues that they need to be improved on, we're told how we can improve on our performance.
So with experience, you get better.
Yes, absolutely.
And your message as we close our chat, your message to anyone who is on the line about joining or not joining is to take that step. Worst case is if it's not for them, they can step away again, right?
Absolutely. Approach us, bring your name to Town Hall, and tell them that the next time we do a class that you'd be interested in following the course. You'll be interviewed by the Chief of Operations and the Director and the Counselor in Human Resources. And they'll find out, and background, if you have a medical background already, it's always a plus. So no restriction, men and women can do this, and at what age do you take recruits? Any further than, say, 65 is, you probably want to consider it. If you're in good shape, 65 to 70, you'll get 5 years in there. And how young? How young? You got to be 18. You have to have a driver's license. Okay. So you have to be 18 to join. Allan, definitely, I can see you're passionate about what you do. Thank you for your work. And I'm just reminding people who may be interested to call Town of Brome Lake, call City Hall, and get the information as to when the next training would be, or to get in touch with Allan. I'm sure you'd answer questions to start, correct? Well, actually, I'm not Chief of Operations anymore. Okay. So you'd be better off to talk with Stephanie. She's fully capable, and she has my backing 100%. And so if you get in touch with me, I will send you to Stephanie, actually, because she is my leader now, and I'm following her, and we have her back 100%. Is there a website? We have a Facebook presence, but you can find us also on the town website. Perfect. Well, Allan, thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing you again, and hopefully not at 3 a.m. in my door. We'll say not professionally. Right. Thank you. All right.